Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Natalia Moczulska, and this is the news. At least 3 people were killed in Russian attacks in southern Ukraine today, including 2 who died after a trolley bus company came under fire in the city of Kherson, regional officials said. Meanwhile, Russia has formed special groups to collect and hide bodies of people killed in the aftermath of the breach this month of the Kakhovka Dam in southern Ukraine, said Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in his nightly video address yesterday. Footage released by Kherson Regional State Administration showed injured people being taken to waiting ambulances, with blood and broken glass spread across the ground. Reuters was able to confirm the location of the footage as Kherson from the buildings, roads and trees seen, which matched satellite and file imagery of the area. Reuters was not able to independently confirm the date the video was filmed. Oleksandr Progudin, the governor of the Kherson region, said 2 men aged 55 and 43 were killed by targeted fire on the Kherson trolleybus company in what he described as another Russian terrorist attack. Of course, we also have information about what is happening in the occupied part of the Kherson region. To describe it, even the word catastrophe is not strong enough. The Russian evil has formed special groups there to remove and obviously hide the victims' bodies. This is not the first time Russia is doing such a thing, seeking to destroy the evidence and traces of its crimes in the occupied territory. They did this in Mariupol and other places. But this is such kind of a truth that cannot be concealed. And I thank everyone who helps our intelligence, our special services to get the necessary information. Ukraine and Russia have both accused each other of destroying the dam in Kherson region, partly occupied by Russian troops. Ukraine's armed forces have halted the Russian offensive toward the cities of Kupiansk and Lyman in the east of the country and are advancing in the south. Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar said on Ukrainian television. Ukraine is in the early stages of a counteroffensive, and the decisive strike is yet to come. We had very fierce battles in the Kupiansk and Lyman directions, but our soldiers stopped the enemy there. Indeed, we still have the main events ahead of us, and the main blow is still to come. Indeed, some of the reserves, these are staged things, will be activated later. In the military, according to their reports and positions, everything is moving according to plan. It is not necessary to expect the offensive to be something very fast. Every day we are advancing. Every day. Yes, it is gradual, but our forces are gaining a foothold on these borders, and they are advancing steadily. Ukraine is in the early stages of its most ambitious counterattack since Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022, and says it has retaken 8 villages, its first substantial gains on the battlefield for 7 months. But Russia still holds swaths of territory in eastern and southern Ukraine, and Ukrainian forces have yet to push to the main defensive lines that Russia has had months to prepare. Reuters was unable to verify the situation on the battlefield. Each side says the other has suffered heavy losses since Ukraine began its counteroffensive, and Moscow has not acknowledged Ukraine's recent military gains. Wealthy nations have finalized an overdue $100 billion climate finance pledge to developing countries and created a fund for biodiversity and the protection of forests, French President Emmanuel Macron said earlier today. Today, at the Paris Finance Summit, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz called on world leaders to do something and keep their promises in the fight against poverty and climate change.
The first question, I think, is that we are sticking to our words, speaking about development aid and climate financing. There are a lot of aims that have been agreed on in meetings in the past following the Paris Agreement, and I think there will be more to come in the next years. But it is important that we do something, that this really works. And so just speaking about Germany, we will stick to what we do, being front runners in development aid financing and being front runners in finding international climate financing.
President Emmanuel Macron was speaking at a final panel of a summit in Paris, where some 40 leaders, including 24 from Africa, China's prime minister, and Brazil's president had gathered to give impetus to a new global finance agenda.
Ce sommet, des choses très concrètes qui ont été obtenues.
First, during this summit, we obtained very concrete things. We finalized the long-awaited $100 billion climate finance pledge. We stepped up for the $100 billion for the redistribution of special drawing rights that was promised in 2021. And I congratulate all those who have finalized their agreements here. We launched a new fund for forests and nature as we set sights on the UN Climate Change Conference that will focus on doing the same thing, meaning finance through revenues that will come out of its initiatives of biodiversity and nature conservation. The summit's objective is to boost crisis financing for low-income states and ease their debt burdens, reform post-war financial systems, and free up funds to tackle climate change by getting top-level consensus on how to promote a number of initiatives struggling in bodies like the G20, COP, IMF World Bank, and United Nations. The $100 billion pledge falls far short of poor nations' actual needs, but has become symbolic of wealthy countries' failure to deliver promised climate funds. This has fueled mistrust in wider climate negotiations between countries attempting to boost CO2 cutting measures. A deep-sea submersible carrying 5 people on a voyage to the century-old wreck of the Titanic was found in pieces from a catastrophic implosion that killed everyone on board, the U.S. Coast Guard said on Thursday, ending a multinational 5-day search for the vessel.
This morning, an ROV, or remote-operated vehicle, from the vessel Horizon Arctic discovered the tail cone of the Titan submersible approximately 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic on the seafloor. The ROV subsequently found additional debris. In consultation with experts from within the Unified Command, the debris is consistent with the catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber. Upon this determination, we immediately notified the families.
A robotic diving vehicle deployed from a Canadian ship discovered a debris field from the submersible Titan on Thursday morning on the seabed some 1,600 feet, or 488 meters from the bow of the Titanic, 2.5 miles or 4 kilometers beneath the surface, in a remote corner of the North Atlantic, U.S. Coast Guard Admiral John Mauger told reporters. The Titan, operated by the U.S.-based company Ocean Gate Expeditions, had been missing since it lost contact with its surface support ship on Sunday morning, about an hour and 45 minutes into what should have been a 2-hour dive to the world's most famous shipwreck. 5 major fragments of the 22-foot, or 6.7-meter Titan were located in the debris field left from its disintegration, including the vessel's tail cone and 2 sections of the pressure hull, Coast Guard officials said. No mention was made of whether human remains were sighted. Even before the Coast Guard's press conference, Ocean Gate issued a statement saying there were no survivors among the 5 men aboard the Titan, including the company's founder and chief executive officer Stockton Rush, who was piloting the Titan. The 4 others were British billionaire and explorer Hamish Harding, 58, French oceanographer and renowned Titanic expert Paul-Henri Nargeolet, 77, who had visited the wreck dozens of times, Pakistani-born businessman Shahzada Dawood, 48, and his 19-year-old son Suleiman, both British citizens. Rescue teams from several countries had spent days scanning thousands of square miles of open seas with planes and ships for any sign of the Titan. Intense worldwide media coverage of the search largely overshadowed the aftermath of a far greater maritime disaster stemming from the wreck of a migrant vessel off the coast of Greece last week, killing hundreds of people.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Please stay tuned for Poland Daily Weather, Poland Daily Business, and some of our other programs. But for me, have a wonderful weekend.